Hi lovelies and welcome to the Witch's Cookery. Today we're talking moon magic, working witchcraft with the moon. Everything that's related to the lunar phases and cycles, lunar energy, ritual, spell work, what working magic with the moon actually entails or what it could mean for you, and of course a ton of history, background, so that you have all the information and can make an informed decision if lunar magic is something that you want to involve in your craft or rather not. Now first of all, what is moon magic? What is lunar witchcraft? That just means working your witchcraft, your spell work, your rituals according to certain moon phases. Essentially, this is also part of sympathetic magic, meaning we're looking at something mundane, like the moon. Well, it's kind of extra mundane. I guess it's super mundane. Well, technically probably like circumundane, if you will. Just a little not that funny pun for my fellow Latin geeks. Let's get back to business. Sympathetic magic, taking something that you can see in your surroundings and prescribing its qualities. For example, the moon is changing, it's like waning and waxing, a magical correspondence. And how we use it in our witchcraft practice I will get into in a second. But first of all, why do we even care about the moon? Well, the moon since ancient on has fascinated people everywhere. And actually since millennia on it has been a very useful tool for humans. Not only before the invention of streetlights, but it was also used as a calendary tool in many cultures. Certain festivities were held at certain full moons, lunar calendars or moon calendars, and lunisolar calendars, so a mixture of like the lunar calendar and the solar year, existed in many cultures around the world for the rise of the Gregorian calendar that we still use today. Months were actually measured by the moon cycle, that 29.5 something days. Very convenient for everyone to see on the sky, so you didn't have to do any complicated counting either. Obviously, back in the times, the moon was also a direction tool. Think of sailors on sea that used the moon and the stars to navigate. Lunar gardening, planting, sowing, growing and working with plants according to the moon actually dates back more than 2 millennia. And especially now here in Europe, lunar gardening or Demeter gardening, how it is called, or biodynamic gardening, is making a big return. If you are a fellow wine lover, you will know that you can now buy a lot of like lunar wines or moon wines that are actually made and grown according to the different moon phases and their prescribed effects on the soil, for example. Likewise, in many places the moon was important for spirituality, religion. It was either the embodiment of a god or goddess or spirit, or there was some sort of mythology around it. In quite a few cultures, the moon or moon deities were connected to fertility, to women, to growing. Kind of makes sense, right? The moon is growing like a pregnant belly and then it's kind of shrinking again and it's doing the same again. Not in all though. In other cultures it's connected to male energies. And also if you look into Wicca, you have obviously the very famous symbolism that also gets used by non-Wiccan practitioner nowadays of the waxing moon, the full moon and waning moon to symbolize the maiden, mother and crown aspect of life, or the triple goddess. Obviously that symbol only makes sense in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere the moon is the other way around, so it would have to look a little bit more like this. But yeah, Wicca is very northern hemisphere based. I'm sorry mate. A lot of us modern day witches also feel very drawn to the beauty of the moon, and some of us do like to incorporate it into our practice. Now, working with the moon can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. There are people out there that never really notice the moon until they look up and there's suddenly this gorgeous full moon there shining bright on them. There are other people that like to do a new moon, maybe a full moon ritual as part of their spiritual routine. And then of course there are also people that really do everything according to lunar phases. Where I live, that's usually the older generation that has lived very rurally. Like my grandma, she will make her hair appointments according to the moon phases. She won't have surgeries on full moons. Gardening, planting, bread baking, only when the moon is rising. But why would people do that? Does it actually have an effect? Well, I cannot answer that for you because that is completely up to your belief and how you want to look at it. Lately there are more and more studies done around biodynamic gardening or Demeter gardening, lunar gardening that do support some of the theories. However, other things might not really have a scientific base to fly on, but that doesn't matter because we're talking witchcraft, and witchcraft essentially is a craft and a belief. A very personal belief at that. So if you believe that the moon has energies and it can really influence you, your spell work, your mood, how you feel that day, your energy levels, anything else, then yes, that will work for you because that is what you believe. And I just assume that you have some sort of experience or basis that you plant that belief on. If you err a little bit more on the skeptical side like me, you might not necessarily believe in lunar energies, but why would that stop you from working with the moon? The moon is still an awesome tool that you can use either to give a little bit more of symbolism or importance to certain ritual or spell work. Just wait for a special day and really put your all in. Or you can use it as a nifty natural calendar that reminds you a couple of times during the month to focus on certain themes in your life. In witchcraft, a lot of people use the different lunar phases, waxing, full, waning, new, to give their spell work or rituals a little bit more power, to add an extra layer of correspondence or symbolism, or just for reflection purposes or to connect with the natural world around you. Well, now that we have established that really everyone can work with the moon, let's move on. How do we do that? Again, how you work with moon, completely dependent on your personal beliefs, philosophies, preferences, needs, and of course, commitment. At that point, just a little bit of factual knowledge. You have your Earth here, you have your Sun here. Earth is rotating around the Sun, right? Moon is rotating around the Earth. Many planets have moons, different moons, not our moon. This is our moon, this is our moon! Uranus has like a million though. Is it Uranus? I'm not sure. It's not Saturn. Saturn is the one with the gas around it, no? Let me see! Don't wanna spread lies. Uranus. Yeah, he only has, she, it. It only has 5 moons. Ah, correct, it is Jupiter. Jupiter has in fact 80 moons. Well, applying our theories here, witching on Jupiter would be quite a pain in the butt. Actually, Saturn has 83 too. Ghastly planet of many moons. Listen up, children. Earth, Sun, moon cycling around the Earth. And depending on where the moon is in relation to the Sun, for example, if the moon is just in between the Sun and Earth, it appears dark because obviously there is no light source. The moon itself doesn't shine. Just in case you didn't know. Pretty sure everyone knew that, but just as a little refresher. So when it then starts to travel around the Earth, it moves away from the Sun. There is space for the Sun to hit it again, and it appears in our sky again until it is nice and bright and illuminated by the big lamp in the sky. And then it goes down again. And then a new cycle starts. So in general, we have 8 different phases, 9 in my book. Explain that in a second. But if you want to make it really, really simple, what you can do is work with the anchor points, which would be the new moon, when the moon is dark in the sky, and the full moon, when you see the illuminated round. I already did an entire video on new moon magic, different rituals, spell work, mundane activities you can do, and you can watch that back here. I'm gonna link it for you up above and down below. But to give you a quick summary, the new moon is often seen as the beginning of a new cycle, where you set your intentions, what you want to achieve until the full moon, what you're setting out to do. The full moon in the witchcraft or spiritual community is often used as a day to really give gratitude, thanks. The full moon is connected with harvest of your efforts, harvest of what you have sown, harvest of what you have grown throughout the moon phase. It's a day to celebrate. It's a day that people say there is high energy, so people like to put out their crystals to charge them, or make moon water by putting out bottles into the moonlight and then use that for all sorts of magical purposes. Many practitioners also use that day to do ritual or spell work about big manifestation or the end goal, outcome, whatever they had planned, whatever seed they had planted in a new moon. Now, if you want to involve the moon more than twice in a lunar cycle or in a month, you can also consider the space in between. One is the waning phase and one is the waxing phase. So one time we diminish, one time we grow, one time we release, one time we bring things in. The more or less 2 weeks of the waxing phase are often associated with stepping into action, doing something, manifesting, bringing things in. And the waning phase is often related to releasing, letting things go, banishing, cutting out. I'm so sorry if you hear my dog cry in the background. He's just being a little brat. You already had a snack. Both wanna die. We had too much Christmas goodies. What does that mean from a magical point of view? It means that, for example, during the waxing phase, you can do a lot of spell work that is really focused on bringing on your manifestations, calling something into your life, growing something, nurturing something, fostering something. Any type of spells, incantations, or rituals that are meant to bring something to you or that enrichen something. Abundance spells, for example, fertility spells, money spells, love spells, the more of things. And during the waning phase, we can do banishings, hex breakings, curse breakings, releasing rituals, cutting ties, burning stuff, and whatever else your little witchy heart desires. Now, obviously, during that waxing and that waning phase, the moon is also doing a lot of more things. Well, technically, it's only orbiting around the Earth, but how we see it changes, right? Because the shadow changes. So looking at the waxing, so the growing phase right now, we have first the waxing crescent. And this is kind of where you plan your adventures, where you plan your new goals, where you're really in the phase of like seeing, hey, what do I need to bring into my life to achieve what I've set out to do, the intention I set. Then we have another very short phase, the first quarter moon, where the moon appears half dark and half light. So this is all about finding balance in your life, especially in relation to what your intention is and what your mundane or magical efforts are, and if that matches. It's also kind of the accelerator that puts you from the planning phase into the action phase, because the waxing gibbous is the time where we really step into action. We're doing stuff and making shit happen. And that leads us to the full moon, which I've just discussed. So now we're in the waning phase, the phase where the moon shrinks again. And likewise, there we have different stages. First, we have the waning gibbous, which is an excellent time to, just like the moon, become a little bit more drawn in, dark, introspective again, and look at, hey, did I achieve what I did set out to? What worked, what didn't work, and kind of go into that planning again. What do I need to release? What do I need to let go of? Might be dreams, ambitions, approaches, people. And that leads us then again to the last quarter. That is a balance day, half dark, half bright. And we can look into balance in what we have in our life, what is serving us, what is not serving us, where are the energy suckers in our lives, and where are the things that bring us joy and fill our cup. And then from there we go to the waning crescent, when you only see like a sliver of light in the sky, where we step into action in the sense of really letting things go, releasing things, banishing things, and then we come technically again to the new moon. But for me, as for many other spiritual practitioners, we observe one phase before the new moon, which is the dark moon. From an astronomical scientific point of view, that is the exact same thing. It's when the moon and the sun are in conjunction, so the moon appears completely black in the sky, and for me that is a time of rest, recharge, and gather the energy for the new waxing, the growing cycle. And then once the tiniest first little light on the sky appears, that for me is the new moon, where I set my intentions again, and we're stuck on a lunar merry-go-round until the day we die. But if you really want to do a deep dive and learn what exact rituals, spells could I do, what activities, mundane activities, practical magic can I do according to each of the 8 or 9 lunar phases, you might be interested in my Lunar Living workshop, which goes through an entire lunar cycle, and every day you get a prompt, an email of an activity that you can do in accordance with the phase of the moon right now. And there are also 5 Zoom calls on the weekends where we each for 2 hours discuss the new phase, do a ritual together, do prompts together, reflect together, and learn more about lunar living, lunar magic in a much more extensive yet very comprehensible and applicable form than here. If you're interested to learn more about it with an intimate group of like-minded witches or practitioners, the link is down below for you. Now again, how I just explained that is how a lot of people practice, but not everyone, and that is okay. We don't all have to believe the same thing. It is generally just symbolism. We just took a symbol and used it for our magical purposes, and how you interpret that symbol is up to you. Magic! You might think, oof, 9 lunar phases to like keep in mind during an entire month. Like, how? What? That's so complicated. And actually there's a great tool for it. My favorite moon app is called Moony, a moon calendar by Freckled OG. I think they're a Dutch company. It is a free app, which is wonderful, and it tells you every day a little bit more about household activities you can do, kind of like a farmer's almanac, or spiritual activities you can do according to the lunar phases. It will also tell you a little bit about moon and astrology, because that's another layer you can put on top of your lunar or moon magic, because the moon travels through the different zodiacs. Actually, it takes always 2 days to cross one. In this video, I'm not going to go too deep into that. You can learn more about that in my course. People that are into astrology also like to use the different moon in different phases in combination with what the sign, the zodiac sign it currently is in, means. Meaning that, for example, a full moon in Libra is probably very different to a full moon in Leo. If you know astrology, you probably know what that means. If you don't, might have to Google it. I mean, don't we witches like our pretty books and our little grimoires and things we can scribble down with moon faces on it and make us feel all magical? Well, I have more for you to scribble down, because yes, you can make this more complicated. Now, reading on the internet or in books, you might have stumbled across phases like the flower moon, the wolf moon, the ice moon. Especially if you have been looking into that and you have been focusing on one month, you might be confused and be like, it's January, but some people say it's the wolf moon and other people say it's the ice moon and some people say it's like the winter moon. So what moon is it? Well, lucky for you, it's all of them, so you can just pick what you want. Where do these names come from? I said before, the moon was used as a calendary tool. It was used by the people to mark a certain time of the year, a part of a season. And obviously back in the times, everyone were farmers, because that is how the people survived. You know, everyone just lived very in tune with nature because they had to. That's what they could observe, that's what they had around them. So the month names that we have now that derive from the Julian calendar were not there back in the days. So different cultures had different names for their moons according to what they could observe during the time of year. The different Germanic tribes had different names. The different Celtic tribes had different names for the moons. Different Native American tribes, the Maori. You can find 1,003 different names depending on what climate zone you're looking at, what culture you're looking at, what was important for the people. Did they more prescribe a rural activity like the harvest moon or the hay moon, or would they prescribe more what the animals are doing, like the wolf moon, the beaver moon? I've gathered a ton more knowledge and ways to work with that specific phenomenon for my workshops. Again, can only recommend the lunar living classes, because they really take you on the hand and guide you through an entire lunar cycle, and after that you will really know what to do during the different phases and feel confident in that, and will be able to make your own spell work, your own rituals tailored to whatever that phase is. Spiritual people or witchcraft practitioners nowadays like to take these romantic sounding names for the different moons and just apply whatever meaning they had back in the days to their modern day life, the spiritual subtext of it, if you will. So if you go by that, for example, the flower full moon in May, that is all about the blooming life and fertility, will be very, very different to the wolf moon in January, where everything is cold and frozen. The wolves go hungry and howl to the moon. In general, you could say that a lot of what modern day witchcraft practitioners are doing is to observe the world, observe what they can see around them, and take symbolism for it for their own lives. Or in that case, they look into history and what the people that were quite connected to nature did back then, and apply that type of knowledge or that type of symbolism to their practice in their lives. Now that you know the basics, you might ask yourself, well, does that mean that I can only do certain spells or rituals during a certain phase? Simplified answer is no, it really doesn't matter, and you don't have to wait unless you want to. If you believe that the moon really has like effects on that and that it will increase your spell or ritual power if you wait, for example, for a full moon, then do that, because it's your craft and it's your practice and it's what works for you. And if you really feel that a certain moon phase is not benevolent for you to do a certain ritual or spell, then don't do it, because then you go into it with a feeling of like, no, this won't work, and then it probably won't work. Personally, I do not believe in lunar energies, but I still feel drawn to the magic of the moon. So I do use certain phases of the moon for certain activities, just because then I know that I do them on a regular level, because they come again and again every month, and I don't really slack on any of the topics. You do you woo when it comes to your lunar magic and your beliefs. Now, as I said, there's already a full video on new moon magic on my channel, but if you would like to see more about full moon activities, leave a comment down below so I know if there's interest for that video. And of course, if you have any tips or tricks or personal experience with moon magic for the wonderful community here to read, leave it down below so people can communicate and share and grow in their knowledge, in their practice. I wish you the most magical day, and I'm gonna see you soon. Bye! Also, I really don't know why I picked that outfit for today, because I feel like it screams sun and not really moon, but okay. Oh, my back. Oh, my back. Oh.